You know, whether he was teaching at the Vidal Sassoon Academy or helping to develop the haircutting collection that is still used to this day for Aveda. He then went on with his lovely wife, Wendy, to be the creative director at Lonza for 10 years. Both are Master Stylist winners, and Wendy is a 7-time nominee for NAHA, for those of you watching from PBA, but who's counting, right? But most of all, I'm happy to have this incredible man who is now a Hanzo educator, because at the core, he is a true educator. So this whole focus is going to be on how to become an educator, what tools you need both mentally and physically and so forth. So without further ado, I am going to look for wonderful, awesome.
On this, I was like, I've got it.
You got a little blowout since I've seen you, and I overdid the bronzer. So welcome. Welcome to the show. So thank you so much for being here and doing this. It's very important, I think, for as many people as possible to see really the history of some legendary artists. And I know you hate those kind of inflated terms and so forth, but I think it's important to get to know everyone, because we're in this world now where everybody is sort of an influencer, you know, that everybody's looking at, and they forget that there was a lot going on beforehand and still killing it. So you're still at Hanzo Shears doing all that.
Yep.
So welcome, Oscar, and let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
I'm always curious what my guests were like as teenagers. So can you tell me a little, did you have the same hair? Were you into a different...
No, I have an identical twin brother to start with.
No way.
Yeah. His name's Peter, and my first name's Simon. So we were very close, and then I think when you're around 12, 13, I wanted to be the opposite to him. He wanted to be the opposite to me. I kind of found girls that he didn't to start with, so we had our own separate friends. But I grew up in the time of Saturday Night Fever. It was all about going to discos, and I was underage, but my brother worked in one of them. So it was, I don't think things have necessarily changed. I just don't want to know what teenagers do these days. But I had a great teenage years, and I started hairdressing in my teenage years. So I was kind of very, very fortunate in ways.
Did you do the big collars and the open shirt?
I did the fluffy shirts. It was all adamant. It was all, you know, the new romantics. There was a little bit of makeup involved. It was Camden Palace in London. Was every Thursday night. There was another club called the Wag Club, and people like I know that you like this music, but there was Billy Idol was there, and all the factory music was there. So I grew up. My big influence from my early years was always music, you know, listening to music. And I can't play music, I can whistle well, but that's about it.
I've heard about your whistling, so we may ask for that a little bit later. So I'm guessing we're about the same age-ish. And I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask everybody who's watching to do the same. Tell me your favorite 80s jam.
It would be Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Two Tribes.
Two Tribes.
The extended 12-inch mix.
Going on and on and on.
That one,
so
yeah.
We're going to need everybody else's favorite song. Antonio, I know you'll have one. In addition to that, any question you have for Oscar, he is here. He's an incredible educator. Put it into the question mark box, or you can put it in the comment box, and Colleen will get it for you, and we'll get that asked as soon as possible. So my favorite would be Soft Cell's Tainted Love.
Especially the long version.
Right?
Don't.
Tainted Love. And I also really loved and related to Bronski Beat, Small Town Boy.
Yeah.
Run away, turn away, run away.
I used to like orchestral maneuvers in the dark.
OMD.
Enola Gay, and I like that harmony, and Ultravox, and all things like that. They're fond memories from them, very fond.
So a little bird told me you might have worked on some of these 80s bands.
Yeah,
Was
when I
that
was, yeah, well, I was much younger and everyone was much younger, but I got to cut hair of some people that did kind of make it. I used to do Spandau Ballet's hair. I got to do the Thompson twins for a photo shoot. I did Chrissy Hines bangs. Yeah, and there was no social media. You did it just for bragging rights, and hopefully you'll get a free ticket. And that was about it. But they were all ordinary people, nice people. Yeah,
Chrissy Chrissy Hines bangs? I mean, that is
that's a
like the
pretender.
most iconic thing ever. Any tips on how to get a Chrissy Hines bang?
You don't. The person you're working on must not look at what you're doing. They mustn't look up because it gets shorter. And she already had a fringe there. So she was like, "Would you mind cutting my?" I was like, sure. So I think a lot of it is putting yourself in those right places. Like all those musicians used to go to, as I said, Camden Palace on like a Thursday night. They were really accessible until they get to a certain point where you never see them again. But yeah,
Right. Every-
fun times.
Everyone's accessible until that point.
Exactly, and that's exact point well taken.
Yeah, when they get two assistants and a manager in order for you to talk to them. So keeping it fun. So the hair at that time was fun, and I think you have one of the coolest quotes. You talked about sort of the originality of that era, late 70s into 80s, and then you have a quote involving Moses that I think is probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
I was saying that fashion today. Well, music drove looks, and there was the start of punk rock, and everyone wanted to look not necessarily beautiful, but interesting, different. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, magazines come along with your editorial looks, and now it looks like Moses has hot rollers because every single cover, and I guarantee you, for the next 6 months, will be the same thing. And I'm showing my age because he was a great fella.
Hashtag Moses and Rollers, the editorial look. I could not agree with you more. It's all like just.
And you can tell the nice work. You can tell people are still very skilled, but I think
Yeah.
they cater to the consumer, and the consumer is fascinated with
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. So when did you know you wanted to do, it sounds like you had a pretty cool, if anyone's ever been to Camden, it's like punk rock, cool, hip central. I would not say it's hipster because it's much more punk aesthetic than that.
Yeah.
But when did you know you wanted to do this hair
I
cutting for the rest of your life?
I really didn't. I didn't do very well in high school. There was lots of entry-level jobs. Unemployment was really high. I was young. I was like 15. My father says, I will let you leave school early to do an apprenticeship. So I said, yes. I was a shy kid, and I said yes to almost everything. And the only apprenticeship they had was one for Vidal Sassoon. And I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea what the next 40 years was going to be, but the first day sticks in my mind always. I worked with fantastic people that were really nurturing. Some people say it's like slave labor. I enjoyed every minute of it. I felt like I was grown up. I didn't know what to say, do, stand, and everyone was kind of giving you that information, and they were really kind. So I was very grateful. I slipped into it, and it's worked out to be really good.
And so you were actually an instructor at the Sassoon Academy.
Yeah, I was a stylist for a couple of years, and the academy would invite stylists in for like a Friday afternoon, and I really, really enjoyed it. So then you make this decision about, am I gonna work in the salon and I'll probably make more money, or do I do something? And I really enjoyed it. It had an international flavor. There was, at the beginning, it was Japanese students, then Swedish students, always students from the US. So I really enjoyed it, and I had no idea. I didn't think I was going to be a very good instructor because I stutter, and I was like, no one's going to want to hear me. But you know what? I looked like a nervous wreck, but I got up there, and all those fears are kind of yours, like the moment I started talking, it really wasn't a big deal to anyone apart from me. So if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't have half of the things that I really enjoy in life. So it was a great move for me. And I think a lot of people don't know what it's like to be an educator, but you're kind of passionate. You want to see people do well. And it's a two-way street. They make you better as well, because you can't be like, you got to kind of explain it, like,
So that's where it started. What made you decide you wanted to continue educating as opposed to just being behind the chair or just doing editorial or punk bands, for example?
I wouldn't have known the journey to just be an editorial hairdresser, especially with my background being Vidal Sassoon. I didn't know how to put hot rollers in there. I didn't know how to use irons. Didn't know how to do anything. So it was all about a haircut. And then I think that got me on the road. Like, I started to be part of the Vidal Sassoon team, where you do shows in different countries, and I got the flavor of traveling. I came out here to do something and fell in love with not just the country, but who was my model, and that ended up to be Wendy. So
Wendy was your model.
Yeah, kind of. It was one of those things where you go to a salon and no one wants a haircut. And someone feels probably here. She worked for really good people that asked me to come back, and then it just snowballs from there. You put yourself in like the right situation, and you put good people around you, and great things happen.
Yeah.
And the same applies for bad people. Put bad people around you, and I guarantee you, bad things happen. So.
Yeah, and we have that in common. I married my model as well from the Czech Republic or Slovakia. So.
There you go. Yeah. And I think
but I didn't stay.
That's really important to who you have. Like, your core people is really important, and people that are successful seem to have a very supportive bunch. So it's really important to recognize who's around you, and I thrive on that, really.
So you talk about overcoming your issue, your internal struggle with stuttering, to just climb that mountain and move on beyond it. What are some things you think someone can do? Say they've always wanted to be an educator, but they just thought, I don't know, I'm a little afraid of getting up in front of people. I don't know if my skill is good enough for my client, but is my skill good enough for showing other hairdressers? Do you have any advice to a brand new to the education game individual?
If you're stepping into education and you don't have a network behind you, I would say offer your services to a school. Like, so you get comfortable standing up in front of students, and students do everything from pick their nose to not being interested to asking you tough questions. And also, I don't know, in my experience, no one's ever come, well, they have come to me, but I think if you put that first foot forward, things happen. If you wait for someone to ask you, whether it's a manufacturer, it doesn't happen. So put yourself in the right places. If you want to work for a manufacturer, be at all the shows. Make yourself kind of a presence so people know you. And if you are starting to show through, like, not so much plastic, people really enjoy that. They like to see the real kind of you.
You are so modest. I mean, someone who literally taught the hardest, most painstaking techniques on the planet, Sassoon, and developed a curriculum with Aveda, and for years at Lonza. What do you look for in an education? Because I assume in all those situations you were building teams as well. What are some of the things you look for when adding an educator to your team?
You look for what people's strengths are. You look for qualities beyond what their skill set is. I think everyone knows how to cut hair and color hair. Some do it better than others, but there is a baseline. It's outside of that baseline. You got to show your passion. You got to be there earlier, stay later. You're going to build a reputation, and everyone talks about a brand. A brand is your reputation. So if you're always late, you're going to be viewed as being kind of lazy. If you party too much, you're going to be looked upon as a bit of a wild cannon. So I think you can control that, and but don't be afraid of showing someone that you're a good person, that you're a caring person, that you need to learn, and can I learn from you? I think that is really helpful. I'm not a great believer in talent. I think people are well schooled or really good influences. So it has nothing to do with size, shape, gender, anything. It's what you show through, and that team might really need that, and that's where they become a member. If that team is full of all the same thing, like how people try and, I think a big key to me was I wanted to be taller in life, not stutter, have bigger arms, and then one day you kind of realize this is it, and people don't really mind it, and that was the key to the rest of my journey, was showing kind of through your skin and not being like, I've got my weaknesses, and people know what those weaknesses are, but I have no problem putting really good people around me. Some people get intimidated by that. You thrive on people that are better than you. So I married well, and I've been really fortunate that I've worked for great companies with great ownership that have always been really supportive. I've been very, 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 very blessed.
Yeah. And so talented, and you're getting so many likes and waves and comments for people who want to, you're like the OG original, I think it was Bryce said. So much respect for your work at Sassoon from so many people just joining in. And so as we move from like education teams, I want to talk about you as an artist. I know you love the cut. I feel like you're kind of the king of cutting techniques. What's your favorite type of cutting besides the Chrissy Hines bang, which I still can't get over? That's so iconic.
You know, I would say I was classically trained, but at the time it was really modern. You know, it was, but nowadays I am viewed upon as being really classically trained. And I think that's what people kind of miss out on. They miss out on rushing through basics to get to here. And really, you need to kind of, all I really do is strong basic haircuts, and you put different flavors in them as time goes on. So if you always do what you always done, you'll always get what you always got. And I got that, and I got that correct. So I don't mind change. Change is the one thing that is always going to happen. And you hope change is always for the better. Sometimes it's not, but you've got to deal with it. That's preach. I have been watching people's music, and everyone on there has fantastic taste. I used to love the Smiths. The Smiths were fantastic. So whoever said that, well done.
Oh, someone's asking your best celebrity hair story from Danko Vice.
Okay, well, when we had the salon, you did a lot of magazine work because it kept you kind of, and you needed press then. You needed magazine press. So one day I get a phone call that I'm going to do Fergie's hair. And wow. I know, and for some reason, maybe it's my name, Oscar Bond, but I was doing lots of things like rap videos. And I'm not as... I did Little Kim, Pink, but one day I get this Fergie. So I am thinking London Bridge. I take a couple of assistants with me. I want them to look as groovy as possible. And when we showed up, it was Lady Sarah Ferguson. So I felt, I wasn't dressed. I was dressed all kind of like, hey, no, it was, I've never felt so embarrassed in my life, being like, oh, wrong Fergie. So yeah, that's.
Oh my God, you're kidding! I know.
And I'll tell you a little story that she did. She was kind of your classic, or like she's kind of Scottishy, tough and everything. She was always late, always in a rush. But she asked me one time, do you have any children? And I said, yeah. She goes, what's their name? I said, I've got a son called Morgan and a daughter called Audrey. That's all I said. And then about 2 months later, 2 packages arrived with her book, one signed to Audrey, one signed to Morgan.
Aww.
Yeah, that was lovely.
That's class.
I mean, I wish I could be a bit more that way, but she was on it and listened to it just once. So I was really, really impressed with her. She was really nice.
It's so fun. I actually met Stacey Ferguson many times back in the day. She was a backup singer for Martika.
Wow.
So that shows how old I am.
Hey, I was born in 61. I have no problem telling people my age. I am 58, and it's been a great journey. It's hard. Some people get very secure as you get older, and I'd say that happens all the time. But you know what? I'm really blessed. I work with great people in a great industry, so there's no such thing as really kind of getting too old.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's my job now to pass back all those key things in my early training of the people I work with made me who I am. I've been in a good mood for like 40 years. I was told on day one, you got to be in a good mood by a really tough Scottish guy. Like, I'm always grumpy, so you got to be in a good mood. I've been like smiling for 40 years since.
I know. I wear my lack of Botox proudly.
No, it's not a problem. It really isn't. I wish that manufacturers put larger writing on small bottles because I have no clue. You kind of shake it and think like, yes, shampoo, there you go.
Or larger fonts on these questions. We did have a question from Abby earlier, who was asking, when you're teaching a class or you're doing a seminar, when do you know if a suggestion from someone in the class is, hey guys, let's all focus on this great question, and so when or not?
You want to encourage as much of an interaction as possible, but you control that interaction. So sometimes I think the smaller groups are harder because larger groups you get a better flow. But if there's someone, I will embrace any kind of bad comment. You know, if someone says, I've seen that a million times, I'll be like, that's really good. You can see it once again. Thank you very much.
Right.
I don't take things personally. And teaching, a great deal of educating is just sharing. Sharing your, like, some things in my training, I learned as you're meant to learn. Some things took me a lot longer. So you're not a perfect, if you pass that across, it's more relatable. I will tell someone if they ask a really stupid question, like, I'm not here to answer.
Question.
Yeah. And I think because of my accent, I can say some things pretty blunt and people just like you're really not attractive. And you're like, oh, thank you.
Where
murder.
You might get Ben Cook just joined the call. Hey Ben, and Ben will be joining us in about 3 weeks' time, I believe. So thanks for stopping by.
I've got Charlie Price next, and Charlie is a dear friend of mine. I've seen Charlie grow from this to
he's amazing.
It's fantastic.
He's amazing, and we're gonna talk soup to nuts on Naha, and Naha will be what I get into next with you, with Charlie, and he's got some great ideas for if you have big budget, you know, little budget, or no budget, and he's going to give you all three for all of those. We had another question, and we have a couple questions here. So, so Abby's saying she needs to pick up an accent so she can say that stuff. Hot Snipper 70, whose hair would you like to do if there was anyone's hair you could do?
You know the lady, it's a newscaster, what's her name?
Oh God, Barbara Walters?
Brooke Baldwin, I think it is. She's really attractive, and I kind of can't stand her hair. I just think
it's like this.
It should look a whole lot better if it kind of moved around, and she's got a really pretty face under there. So sometimes I turn channels because I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. But it's almost like she's got a little bump it going. Okay, we're gonna put that out there that she needs your attention. Also, let's see. Oh, let's see. Danka Voice. What celebrity has the best trend going right now? So who's setting the trends?
There's not many trends. There's lots of flavors. I think someone, because I've got a 14-year-old is my youngest, a girl, Ariana Grande, no matter whatever she does, just explodes.
It's magic. So, yeah.
I don't really watch the Kardashians, but people are fascinated by these individuals. So I look at a much bigger picture. I don't really, I pick things up I do lots and lots of classes. And for you educators out there, some of your best ideas will come from people that do a good idea badly. So you kind of thrive on people that are around you, like they messed up, but you can see something really good in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I look at a really bad idea done well or a really good idea done poorly, but I kind of thrive on that because it makes you think. Like when someone messes up in a class, it comes back to you having to fix it. And sometimes I get great ideas from that.
I love it. So moving on, and we'll keep those questions coming because I think they're very interesting. A lot of people curious about your celebrity clients. Did you say Lil Kim too?
Little Kim. Nothing little about her.
Oh my God.
And she's from Tiernick, New Jersey, which is a really affluent area. So lots of these people in music, they come from great families. They have really good schooling. Very few of them are like your Tupacs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I'm a huge fan of hers. So let's talk about Naha. You and Wendy won the Naha Master Stylist a few years back, and that's a category as chairman of Naha. It's invitation only, so it's past nominations, past wins, being a platform artist, being an upstanding educator, citizen to the community. So as a Naha winner, what inspires a Naha collection? Could you let us know, peek into that? Yeah.
Well, my wife and I, it was during the time we were creative directors from Lanza, and Lanza really encouraged us to do photo shoots and to be part of to enter Naha. I've got to give all credit to Wendy. Wendy's the one that storyboards, dream boards, this, that, and the other. I just get to do what I do, and we had a really good idea. So I think a Naha starts with a concept, and that concept has to carry through as a collection. I have a really good friend who is a well-known editorial hairdresser. His name was Thomas MacGyver. He was working with a photographer, and he said, "You got to use this kid. He's fantastic." So I got who now his name's Trevor Owsley. He does the Victoria's Secret ads. But I got him at a time where he was right at that level of wanting to build a portfolio. So we decided on black and white, because those old Vidal Sassoon pictures, the ones with all the shadows, I really enjoyed those. That's where the concept came from. And then we decided we'll do one from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And it's really hard to do. I mean, Charlie's much better than I am at it, but it's really hard to make collections fit. You have good ideas, but it's got to fit as a collection. We called it Shadow and Light, and it did really well. So, but it starts with that one idea, and second to that idea is a beautiful face, and it's not mine. So,
it's not mine.
No,
we have more questions. With two amazing kids, so I'm not sure we mentioned you have two children, so this must be a fan. With two kids, do either of your kids want to continue in the legacy and be in the beauty business?
My youngest, Audrey, she's been helping me out every day doing these Zoom classes. I don't think, and that sounds crazy, but my kids don't really know what I do, because I travel so much in other places. They're not really connected to me with social media. So I think when they were little, they thought I worked at the airport, because I was always going to the airport, coming back from the airport, going to the airport. I think Audrey really has a passion to be like her mum and like her dad. She wants to do that. But she's 14. Who knows? My son, he'll have something to do with money. He's cheap as hell. So true.
Melissa asked, who is your biggest influence? I'll let you give two, because I know you've absolutely been influenced by so many. But
influences by legendary people would. But I didn't really know Vidal. He's that inspiring character. The owner of Vader was Horst Rappelbacher. He taught me a great deal. Taught me how to kind of get what you want and keep focused. And also the owner of Lanza, David Berklas. He was really accommodating. Like he's not a hairdresser. I'd always worked for hairdressers, and he was fantastic. So in my training, it will be people that like Vivian McKinder, and almost every member of staff that has ever worked for me has given me something to kind of build my repertoire, or they've given me a big, massive headache. But you do get things from the people that you're around. I was always inspired by Hugh Hefner. If I could be anyone, Hugh just had the life. You know,
Right?
a smoking jacket. It didn't seem to work a day in his life. And Vidal, those two people will always stand out in my mind.
Yeah, I had my big meeting with Vidal Sassoon. We were doing the morning news at ABS, America's Beauty Show, with Roz, what's her name? And somehow I'm in such a fog, like I'm standing next to fucking
I know.
on the news. I couldn't breathe. And so he turns to me right before they start and he goes, Vidal. And I said, Vidal. And he goes, you as well. I was like, I just said his name back to him. I was like, blah, 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 blah.
That's the best I've heard. That's fantastic. No,
I feel like an idiot.
all I ever heard, and I worked for them for years, was that he was a really great person.
It was great. He invited me up to his breakfast, which was a bunch of fresh cut fruit. And then a lovely lady with red hair came in and said,
That sounds perfect.
badass. He's badass. How can you advise someone to master their craft? Can you master your craft?
Yeah, you learn from someone that knows what they're doing, and you practice, and you practice, and you keep a real sense. Like I was taught very, very technically to the point sometimes it looked ugly, but it was perfectly done.
Yeah.
I think there's a really fine balance. So I use straight shears and I've mastered clean lines. I think if you want to master using a razor, go to someone that knows a lot, like Vivian McKinney or Nick Rojo. They're masterful with razors. So I don't think there's one influence, but if you practice, even if you practice something you don't really enjoy, you become better at it. And what makes you really good is when you enjoy it and you want it. You know, so the things you kind of avoid, the things that you avoid in your training have a weird way of creeping back on you and biting you really bad. So I learned dressing from really good dressers. I've never used a razor really. I've never been exposed to that. But if you track down people that have mastered one part of what they do and you practice, I do believe you can learn everything. There's a lot to learn though. So all I've ever done is hair cutting. I don't see color very well. So I'm blessed to have Wendy as a right arm to do color. I was never very good at color. I don't see it. I don't see what color is seen. You know, when they talk, oh, we're going to go spring, summer, your eyes. I look at them like, which color do you like?
Make it happen.
Pick one. Yeah, pick one and I'll do it. So I don't know the chemistry of that. But hair cutting, you get to a point in what you do where you get supremely confident, meaning that no matter what could go wrong, you know that you could handle it. And I feel that way in cutting hair, but not in any other areas. So, but that's how you, and I think that confidence is what gets you jobs later on. So as an educator, you don't want to be a wallflower. You also don't want to be a firecracker. You want to be somewhere between there. It's a hard navigation, but confidence is what people thrive on. They pick up on it. They realize it's. And as an educator, most of your strength comes from your neck up. Saying
your brain.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, it's not about and there I was.
Yes.
No,
some scissory, tricky things.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, no, there's no ninjas in hairdressing. So I think if you show yourself to people as much as you can, and you're a human being, sometimes you got to do a little bit of tough love, like telling someone you can't just be someone's best friend, but you can navigate it to be like, you know, I expect a little bit more from you. I will help you with that. So in my training, if I did something, how I went wrong again. I think that's really good information when you're educating and you're trying to teach someone else. You can't just say it's wrong. You've got to explain why it's wrong, how they're going wrong, and how they do it correctly.
Melissa asked, are there any books you would recommend that stylists and salon owners should read?
You know, if I'm really honest with you, I've read like 3 books in my life.
Is one Are You Being Served? Wasn't it called? Sassoon.
I think that to this day, the kind of prologue of Vidal's book, like the written words versus the pictures, are really important about proportion of face. I have a really good friend called Anthony Whitaker. He has some books called Grow. That's almost like a pathway. And I think Eric Fisher's book, Eric Fisher from the Midwest, He
Love
has a
Eric.
book. Eric has a $10 million business in Wichita, and people love him. So I think if you go to the right person, he has been a big influence in my life. He's a really good friend, but he loves his people. And so his book is really good. I would like to write a book one day if I could spell and if I could do everything else. So it's going to take a long time.
So people are curious where they can see you now, your trainings you were doing. Can you tell us a little bit about Hanzo and what you're doing?
Yeah, I work for a company called Hattori Hanzo Shears, and they're a high-end shear company that's only been around about 10 years. I kind of fell into this position, but I fell into something that was really fantastic. So we've gone from like 0 to 40 million, and we thrive. We've now become a powerhouse of education. We only do cutting. There's no color lines, product lines to follow. So we sell shears through classes. But you could give them a call and say, I want to get Oscar in. You could get 20 people together and they'll send me in. And I fell into this thinking I didn't really want to do this slinging steel, and it's worked out to be one of the best fits ever. So sometimes you always need to work. You know, my wife and I, we had a bit of a tragedy where a building burnt down and it was the end of everything. I needed a job. So Hattori Hanzo was there. The money wasn't there to start with, but I've now been with them for 5 years. We've got a fantastic team. They're all really nice people. I couldn't ask for more. And they look at me as older as having a lot of value. And I think in life, what keeps you going is that level of value. Like when you lose value, that's when you kind of think, I want to do something else. So they keep me busy. I've been working every day during this.
So you all have really good taste. Okay, here we go, Oscar. So shears or razors?
Shears.
Shears, I figured.
Yep.
The 80s or the 90s?
80s.
80s, of course. Toenail clippers or pedicure?
Toenail clippers. I'm ticklish.
Punk or pop?
Bump.
Cake or chips?
Chips.
Chips. Savory. Theater or Netflix?
Theater, every time. I stay awake.
Sci-fi or conspiracy?
Sci-fi.
Phone call or text?
Phone call.
Dine in or delivery?
Oh, delivery. Every time.
Cartoon or CGI?
Cartoon.
Riches or experiences?
You know, I've had plenty of experiences, so I'd like to say riches right now. No, 10 out of 10 experiences. I know a lot of miserable, wealthy people.
Yeah, I'm with you. Heels or sneakers? Not for you personally.
Heels. Heels every day.
Everybody keeps saying heels. We have to apologize to you women. It's us guys. We're the reason, all us designers and
heels every day.
I think we should be forced to wear a pair for a day the next time we require them in a show, though. I heard you're a bit of a Star Wars franchise geek, as I am myself. I had cases and cases of in-the-box toys in the 70s and 80s that my brother sold at a yard sale for 25 cents a piece. Worth thousands. I even had the display cases from the stores that showed them off. So your final questions will be Han Solo or Skywalker?
Han Solo.
Yeah, he's cooler, right?
Yep.
And C-3PO or Yoda?
Yoda.
Yoda. Or Baby Yoda?
Yoda.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
You too, Michael. Thank you.
Don't forget to tune in. I'm live on PBA with Charlie Price in 2 hours.